You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And so the Tuesday edition, or excuse me, the Thursday edition. Great start to the show, Nick. Yeah, I know. I always lose track of the days here on the show. Can we restart that? The Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill. I was just trying to figure out in my mind how many days until the NHL draft, and then just boom goes the dynamite. What's going up, Rosie?
Not much. Just enjoying the sunshine today. Good mood. Got my new mug while I'm waiting for the Nation Network to send me my Leafs one. But I'm not a normal uncle. I'm a cool uncle.
Yeah, that was the number one line I used when my brother had a kid last year. I was the funkle, but he's also like, are you going to be the 40-year-old single uncle? And I said, there's a possibility of that too. Yeah, I got
all signs point towards that. Shit. Yeah, my niece Bailey saw this in a store and told her mom that she had to get it for me, and I thought that was a hell of a nice gesture because I thought that she thought I was kind of a moron, and here we are. It turns out I'm a cool uncle and a fun uncle.
I think there's a way where she can think you're a moron, but also a cool uncle. It's probably a bit of both, to be honest. Working with you the last couple of years, you are a bit of a moron. Yeah.
Sometimes, I guess not cool, just fun. Fun's good. Yeah. I'll take fun.
No, I would definitely say you're fun. You know what is fun? The wheeling and dealing. It's like all hell breaking loose yesterday in the NHL, where it seemed like collectively all GMs are like, you know what? We're not waiting for this 4-month-long Stanley Cup Final to conclude. We're gonna do some business right now. We saw a combo of activity, but all I could think about is like, when's the first Leafs move gonna go down, eh?
I know. You start to see things like that break, and you just start to get a little horned up and excited for some action, like we've been talking about. There's got to be some moves made, some plays that get finished here with this club and this roster. And I'm thinking of Mr. Tree Living and what kind of moves he's going to make. But yeah, it's exciting to see some stuff go down. A lot of eyebrows raised at times, but it's screw it. Pull some trigs, man. We don't need to wait for the finals to be over.
And number one, I want to see some creativity. I thought there was a bit of creativity with that Los Angeles-Washington trade, which we'll talk about in mere moments. But across the league, it seems like business is picking up. And again, I know I minced words at the beginning, but yeah, there are 8 days away from the NHL draft round run at the Sphere. I'm going to be there at Stadium Swim in Vegas Wednesday to Friday doing Leafs Morning Take. And number one, it'll be fascinating being in that market for an NHL draft. But number two, every draft, there seems to be a lot of noise, less activity. I just wonder if it could be the other way around this time because there's so many players in play. And don't forget, the salary cap goes up this summer.
Yeah, it's a good time to have some deals break. I know it's kind of about the draft and the, addition of some new players to organizations and Celebrini, and I get it all. It's cool, but I'm kind of, also looking for maybe an eventful draft with more than just draft picks getting played out, trades and deals being made and swaps and some deal breakers and get the ball rolling in anticipation of free agent Frenzy on July 1. Nice.
I'm taking shrapnel everywhere. I guess producer Vic said, I said, what's going up instead of what's going on, Rosie, to start the show. Then Mr. Briggs writes in, hey, Jay, from my angle, the moron is on the left.
Wow. Love that, man. Good.
Just shrapnel everywhere. I get it. Get ready for the Daily Faceoff Live free agency special coming to you on July 1st, live from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join Tyler Remchuk, NHL insider Frank Sarvalli, former NHLers Carter Hudd and Colby Cohen, and friends from all over the league for 3 hours of nonstop action as they dive deep into the madness of free agency. They'll be breaking down every trade, discussing the impact on teams, predicting the future of the free agents, and giving you the inside scoop on all the wheeling and dealing happening around the league. Catch all the action live on July 1st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time for the Daily Faceoff Live free agency special. You won't want to miss. I'll be on a panel talking some Leafs for that show a couple times, and we will be having a regular edition of Leafs Morning Take, but it'll be in the afternoon on that day as we sift through the activity from what we expect to be potentially a busy July 1 for the Maple Leafs, right?
Well, that's pretty neat. Yeah, looking forward to it. I hope there's lots to talk about and we're not scratching and clawing at a bunch of no movement going on, but like we said, I think yesterday, I think there is ripe chance there's some fireworks, man. We got the cap space for once. Big old Mitch Marner's maybe in play, and we're gonna maybe, hopefully, possibly find out more about these things. And I hope there's some stuff to get excited about.
Tell you what, we got to do something with this NHL schedule. I mean, not to complain, but I am just a lot of people are worn down. It's a long season. You started mid-September, and now we're here late into the month of June. July 1, we're going to be working. We've got to do so. Like, we can't start the season like a week early. Like, I mean, just hypothetically speaking, Rosie, if there's a game 7, that'll be Monday. Doesn't matter who wins. Their parade's going to happen Wednesday or Thursday. And you're telling me they're going to have to hop on a bird and be at the draft on Friday. And I know you'll be happy if you win the Stanley Cup, but I think the schedule, we just need to shore it up a bit, bud.
Maybe. I know those players, like, since COVID, have been going hard, going deep, going long. They had some catching up to do with COVID, and it ran into the next season. I think they've caught up now, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because I like to look on the positives and not bitch and complain and moan all the time, Nick. But it's awesome that there's another game. It's awesome there might be another game. Every time the cup gets giveth away, I like to watch it, and then it's like, oh, no hockey anymore, no hockey. And then you watch the highlights in the morning, and it's baseball, and it's painful, and it's boring, and it's kind of depressing when the hockey's over. But I get what you mean. If it starts to run into the draft, and I mean, can you imagine being a GM and like architecting this team and going through all these highs and lows and winning the cup and just wanting to get smashed and drink everything under the sun out of the cup and just boogie, and then you got to go do business, and like you wouldn't be able to really enjoy it because you got a bunch of stuff on your plate. So that's the only thing I feel for. But other than that, I'm just enjoying the excitement of this time of year and the finals and what's going on with Edmonton and Florida.
Rushman 93, bitch, complain, and moan sounds like Marner.
Oh, does he bitch? Yeah, he kind of does bitch a little bit. I want to know, like, has he given a list that Tree Living, like, hasn't given anything? Is there an indication? Like, we say, nope, no, he hasn't. Nope, he hasn't. It hasn't been tweeted that he has. Like, who the fuck knows? Why would you? No one knows what goes on. But I can't stand the media sometimes being a part of it, going with these stupid little rumors popped out. Oh, Mitch Marner prefers to be extended. Oh my God, retweet, everyone go crazy. Like, dudes, no one knows what's going on behind those doors. A little bit of leak here and there, whatever they want you to know in here. And you guys, like, not you guys, but the media jumps on it and goes nuts, and we're part of it now, I guess. But let's be honest. If they've had an honest conversation about this with the agents, where is he leaning towards? Well, he does not want to go to like a San Jose or an Anaheim or something. He does not want to go to New York City. He does not want to go. Okay, cool. He does not want to go to Buffalo. Okay, well, what's he looking for? Well, he likes this kind of thing. He's open to that. He likes the way this team's moving in this direction. Okay, cool. Just give you a roundabout way of what he's thinking, and then you can start to work, and then maybe present him, hey, this is what we got, and we're thinking about it. Is this on? Should I pursue this or not? I think is kind of how it would go, but kind of drives me nuts with the little leaks of Twitter and everyone thinking that, nope, that definitely hasn't happened when you don't know nothing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't say people don't know nothing, first and foremost, but I would say there's no doubt in my mind that GMs and agents use the media to get their point across. Like, even something we'll talk about later on with Jake DeBrusk. You don't think that was filtered out there as the Leafs continue contract negotiations with Tyler Bertuzzi? Like, it's easy to draw links. I think we see that quite a bit. And when that does happen, it's sort of funny how business picks up really, really quickly. Even with the whole like Markstrom Leafs thing last week, within the span of 4 to 5 days, suddenly New Jersey and Calgary come together on a trade. But I do agree with you in some respect. I think both sides are used to their benefit. Having said that, I would think the Leafs have a pretty good understanding if they were going to do something with Marner, who he would be open to. Like, there's no doubt, you're right, behind closed doors, they probably had a conversation and suggested, you know what, it was a tough year. We're 1 year away from UFA. It's like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge type thing. I think they have to have a pretty decent understanding. I mean, we're like more than a month removed from the season, right?
You'd sure think so. And I mean, I don't know, unless the Marner camp is completely just like put up a wall
Clueless.
and said,
Yeah.
not giving you anything. I don't know. It's interesting, but all I do know is that no one's in that room but a handful of select people, and they're the only one that really knows what's going on. So it's interesting to see, but yeah, lots of moving parts, lots of opportunity, and we're creeping up to the actuality of something being able to take place. And I know I have my reservations about it getting done early, and I would love to be wrong, but I just, it's such a hard. I don't know. Is it that hard of a deal to make? Like, such a big market. There's so much scrutiny. It's Mitch Marner. He's an all-star. He's from there. He says it's just hard to get a deal done, but I still have my fingers crossed that there's going to be a big splash made, and I would love for it to be at the draft. And then you go into July 1 knowing what you have at your disposal, and you can really start to like be an architect of this team, knowing what you have behind you as far as cap space, salary, open positions, what you're looking for, what you got in return. It would be really exciting, and I just hope they don't get into a jam where like they're kind of handcuffed.
Yeah, to your point, you would hope there's legwork done in a deal behind the scenes, and maybe Brad Treliving can keep things very quiet, similar to what happened yesterday, where the Washington-Los Angeles trade came out of nowhere. So I think that is a pretty good hope if you're Leafs Nation, because the more this filters out into the media, true or false, it's going to cause a shitstorm, which we've seen the last couple weeks for certain. We had a chance to catch up with Ryan Reaves yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. He was sitting poolside in Vegas there, and yeah, didn't quite know what to expect. Don't know him personally, but a good interview, man. He dishes a lot of stuff. He's completely open, completely honest. Talked about his first half of the season, where it was going, and it just wasn't the token interview with complete bullshit answers. It was a lot better than that. It was in depth. He seems like a solid guy, solid teammate, and you can see that shine through in just a short interview.
Gives you a lot. Thank you to Maple Leafs for hooking that up. Thank you for Revo for stopping by at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for all things Toronto Maple Leafs. The opening segment is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. For a good time, find Greta, 590 King Street West. Weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Let the games begin. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. So Jacob Markstrom ends up in New Jersey, probably what we expected dating back to the trade deadline. The fascination for me was the return. I thought the Devils did pretty damn well. It was a 2025 first-round pick, top 10 protected. And Kevin Ball is a pretty steady defenseman. I believe they got him in the Taylor Hall trade with Arizona a couple years back. But I think all in all, pretty damn good deal. And I think the Flames retained 31.25% of Markstrom's contract as well, which means the Devils are paying like $4 million for his final 2 seasons. You pair him with Jake Allen, and suddenly Sheldon Keefe has 2 solid options in between the pipes.
Yeah, totally. I am close to the Calgary fans and whatnot, and seemed like a bit of an inevitability, but fuck, just tough to feel like you're winning on that one, that first rounder. If it's if things go well and Jersey does turn things around and make a run, that first round pick is not like it's going to be a 3rd overall or something like that. It's going to be probably a little bit later. And to eat salary too and not give up too much, it feels a little light on the Calgary Flames end. But I don't know, they're just in shambles, man, with their big boys just wanting to leave town. And honestly, people say, look at what Tree Living did in Calgary. Like, they were a couple of years ago, like challenging, a contender for the cup, and now they're in absolute shambles, going to go through an I don't know how many year rebuild here with nothing to speak of to be excited about. But if you go back to the time where Tkachuk wanted out, Goodrow wanted out, you look like you're going to be standing there empty-handed, and you work a deal to get Jonathan Huberdeau at the time, Mackenzie Weegar back in return when you could probably end up with not a whole lot. He looked like a genius, and there's not one bloody person who at the time wouldn't have said, oh my God, pull the trigger. We might get out of this one somewhat unscathed. It just turns out that Huberdeau's a total bust and can't do anything in Calgary and is next to useless for a $10 million player. And it's blown up in their face, but that is not on Tree Living because, like I said, hindsight's 2020. And if any single person that is pointing to Tree Living's mess in Calgary, you're an idiot, because if that exact person was in his shoes, he absolutely 100% would have made that deal, and it just hasn't worked out. That's not on Tree Living. You put names on paper and you did the best you could, but yeah, Calgary has taken a big old hit. I can't think of a team that's really fallen from grace that fast. And now without Markstrom, and they're in a complete rebuild. So tough for them. But yeah, you look at the New Jersey Devils, and they were wanting to make some serious changes. They were not happy about the way their season went and the direction they were going in. And now they got a good solid back end there and in between the pipes, and we'll see what Sheldon Keefe can do with that group.
Unequivocally, I would agree. I had the infamous tweet when it went down that could end up being the most lopsided trade in NHL history in favor of Calgary, by the way. I love the deal from the Calgary perspective. It just shows you, like, you're so right. When that deal went down, people are like, holy crap, what are the Florida Panthers doing? And then you flash forward 2 years later, it's like, well, that was the worst trade ever. Why did Tree Living do that? But it's like, no shot in hell. You make that trade every day of the year. But you're right. Jonathan Huberdeau forgot how to play hockey now.
Yeah, it's not on Tree Living at all. He literally looked like a genius at the time. Why? Because it was the best deal that he could have possibly made. I don't think he thought he could get that much in return. He was losing those guys no matter what and needed to salvage something. And he absolutely did with blue chip prospects and players. And they haven't come to fruition in Calgary. That's not really on Tree. But again, if anyone who's bitching about that situation, you claim that you wouldn't have made that deal in the same chair as Tree Living at the time, you're just a liar. Like, he absolutely did what he did what anyone would have done, is my point.
The chat is very contentious today. Alan Grease writes in, your two are clowns. I think he means you two are clowns, but nevertheless.
Sometimes keyboards are hard, sir. Sometimes you go on a morning show and then you get on the keyboard and it's really difficult and it's hard and it's scary, but you'll get it. Keep going, buddy. We're with you.
He says Tkachuk was 24. I get that. But I'm talking about volume in a trade. I think I was more than okay from the Calgary perspective, what they were retaining in that deal. Uyghur stunk 2 years ago. I thought he was great this year. So it's like not all bad for Calgary, but certainly when you look at Matthew Tkachuk, again, he's 1 win away from a Stanley Cup. And you look at the trajectory and the age of Huberdeau, yeah, it doesn't look very good right now.
Yeah, that's life, baby. But like I said, they didn't pull off some trade. They were handed a shit sandwich and they had to hurry up and make something of it. And he absolutely did. Just because Huberdeau turned out to be a bit of a bum so far, it's not really on Tree. Like I said, that guy in the chat that can't spell, he would have pulled the trigger if he was in Tree Living's spot. And he's absolutely kidding himself if he thinks he wouldn't.
Tyler, where is the Reaves interview? Don't worry, Tyler. It is coming. This is like a 50-minute podcast. Don't worry. You will not miss Ryan Reaves. So naturally, the question, Rosie, with the Markstrom combo, we can loop in the Kemper deal as well. Where do the Maple Leafs go from here? Like, what are the options remaining? You would think Linus Ullmark could be in the mix. Like, if I'm him, I'd rather Toronto over Ottawa. He's going to guide and control everything in that situation. Nashville hasn't made it be known if UC Saros is available. I'm just starting to get a little concerned that it's going to be your guy, Laurent Brossoit.
I don't have anything against Brossoit.
That's your guy.
Why?
I don't know. You're pumping his tires last week. You can't go back now.
I wasn't. I thought my original take was I want someone with some serious weight behind them. I want them to already be an established stud. I've been saying Ullmark since day one, and I know you don't like to trade within and all the bullshit or whatever, but make a deal happen. And if Ullmark wants to kind of shove it up Boston's ass and can get there, I think he'd have motivation to say, I really want to flourish in this market. I really want to shove it up the Bruins' arse for putting me on the back burner after winning the Vezina and passing me by with Swayman. And I want a guy like that who's been in the pressure cooker, who knows who he is, who's not trying to find his game in that market, who's not trying to figure out who he is in that market, already established. Like I said, get to training camp day one. Hey, media, you know who I am. You can screw off. I'm going to go cook right now. And everyone just lets him be because he is who he is. It's not all these question marks and second guessing and hyper analyzing every move of a young goalie who's trying to find his way and figure out who he is. It makes it that much more difficult. Hence why Toronto had not had a goalie in so long. I mean, who knows who Justin Pogge and Toskala and the Monster and Anderson and all these guys could have, would have, should have been had they been in a different market. I'm telling you, they're not as good in Toronto because it's much more difficult to perform. Hence why I want an absolute stud back there. But I'm starting to lose it on Soros, man. He's a little older, really small. Like he's not the makeup of a goalie that, is the new age goalie, a big blocking goaltender, kind of small. Like I can just see him getting sliding around, and I don't know. It's just his size concerns me, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's probably been the story of his career, and he's been one of the best goaltenders on the planet. So that would be my rebuttal. I think if you're asked, you were to ask Jamie McLennan, he'd probably say the same thing. I'm a big believer in UC Saros. I know what you're saying. I think goaltenders tend to come to this market and they forget how to play the position. I just don't know if there truly is a guy out there. Like I tend to agree with you at Allmark. I just think that's going to be a tough deal to make when it's Boston. It just is. Interdivision, I think, is a bit more difficult. If I'm Boston, I probably feel a bit better dealing with Ottawa with the due respect to that organization than the Maple Leafs. You don't want to help Toronto out. But the options are limited. Like John Gibson's going to be out there, is out there with Anaheim. But again, the guy's always hurt. That's my other issue with goaltenders. If you're going to
How
pay,
old is he? He seems like he's been around for quite a while.
I think Gibson's around 29, 30, like that threshold.
Not bad.
Yeah, like you're not going to find the perfect fit, because if teams have the perfect fit, they're going to hold on to him too.
I know, but that Allmark, man, I feel like he is the perfect fit. And just a guy like him could just be like a god back there. And then you can just totally forget about the crease. And if it's, and then Joseph Woll's like the supporting cast where the sky's the limit with him. I just feel like that'd be so nice to have. And then you can kind of work with your D and then figure out what you're doing up front and just cook on your skaters, and you have the crease taken care of. It would be sweet, be so sweet. You could go into every game with, in the playoffs with just confidence, with Allmark back there going, this guy has done it before and he knows what he's doing. And you can just finally have that confidence back there and not a question mark.
You're right. I've been saying for a while, I really, really like Philip Gustafson with the Minnesota Wild. He's a guy not really spoken about a lot. It sounds like he's on the market as well. So maybe you make a play for him. But I know everything's around Mitch Marner right now, but how are they going to shore up the crease is my question. And I think whoever they pick up will give you a firm indication of how they truly feel about Joseph Woll. Like if they go out there and get a bona fide stud, it tells me, yeah, they think that guy could get hurt every other game. If they get a guy to pair with him, I think they believe in him. They should believe in him. I think we've seen bits and pieces from him specifically this year where like, wow, this guy is the real deal. But like most goalies, again, it's important to stress this because I know Leafs fans have been down on Joseph Woll. The position has never been this volatile. It's not just Joseph Woll getting hurt every fourth game. It's every goalie in this league, save a couple guys.
Yeah, and I don't know, just to get someone that's paired with him, that's then all of a sudden it's like, which one's the starter and who's the guy and who's hotter right now, and do we pull him, and we lost that game, so does that mean we yank him or do we trust him, and then there's I kind of want like a stud 1 and then a Joseph Woll 2. I know he's not as young as he seems, but his experience level, and I know he can't get experience without being in there, but I just don't want to throw him into the fire and have him get burnt in some way, shape, or form and have his kind of reputation and confidence hurt a little bit. I'd like a year or two of the back and forth and see what happens before we give the keys to the palace to the guy, which I think is going to happen in the future, barring any major injury problems. Like I know he's kind of injury prone, but that, guys have issues and get their high ankle sprained, and it's just life happens. And then you don't deal with that anymore. It's not like he's, slotted to be hurt, 4 months out of every single season going forward. That's not the deal. He's had some bad luck. It doesn't mean he's totally prone to and guaranteed to be hurt a whole bunch. I think he could be healthy and stay healthy, and just got to show that. And we got to protect the asset in the background with some support.
Man, can you believe Pierre-Luc Dubois is only 25?
Tell me you're a problem without telling me you're a problem. Rob Blake just signed this guy to a monster deal. What is he, 3rd overall, only 25, and he's been on like 4 teams already and bitching and complaining on every one of them, and then handpicking where he wants to go, and that's supposed to be his spot in LA. 1 year, dude. It's not like they've grinded 3 years and said, well, 1 year, and they're like, get this guy out of here. Like, red flag. And then the Washington Capitals are like, we'll take them, like no salary retained. We'll take the whole contract. We'll take your problem that you obviously just totally screwed up on, or you wouldn't want to. Who signs a guy to that kind of a contract, then unloads him after the first year, unless there's like major problems going on behind the scenes? And who gets a buyer for that problem? Washington just steps on him. And here's Kemper as well, who just won the cup a handful of years ago. I know it might be a little bit of a salary dump as he's been passed over, but that's wild, man. I'm scratching my head at the Washington Capitals today.
That was a wild trade. Like, I didn't expect it from either side. You're right on Washington. Like, why would you want to acquire like that, a guy like that? Like, you just got rid of Anthony Mantha, who was pretty much the same type of player with you, Verona before, and now it's like another headache. And just the length on that contract. All I could think about too was, like, again, everything in my mind goes back to the Maple Leafs. How it took 1 year. LA identified it. They're like, no, this is not working. We're going to move on. For the Leafs, it's like 6-7 years in a row. Let's keep banging our head against the wall and let's figure it out. Like, I actually respect LA for being like, you know what? Granted, I thought they got an excellent deal, as you mentioned, not having to retain any salary in that monster contract and getting a goalie on top of that. Pretty stealth piece of business. But they're like, you know what? This isn't working for us. We're moving on. Like, the Leafs can learn from that, I think.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think it's, if you're referencing Marner or whatever, like it's the Leafs have always had good people and good, good people. It's just they're not working in the market. But like I have a feeling, and I don't want to knock a player that I don't know personally, but you tell me what the problem is where this high-end pick, Dubois from wherever he's from, and he's just can't be happy anywhere. They unload him after giving him a monster contract. Just screams character problem, screams selfish issues. It just screams all that stuff where they would unload him after one bloody year. I just see red flags all over the place, and I would probably not be a buyer for someone else's obvious problem, just based on the term that he's spent in LA and he's gone again. I just don't understand it. But what's with everyone calling it a creative trade when it's a simple 1-for-1?
Well, I think it's creative in the fact that they found a way not to retain salary. They addressed the need. I called it creative. I put that in the rundown, and you read it verbatim off the rundown. But I did think it was creative because I think it's hard to make trades, and very seldom do you see 1-for-1 hockey trades anymore. So I thought it was smart by both GMs. If you got to do
I
something,
think
you got
you
to do
used a
something.
stupid word there, Nick, because creative would be like a 3-team trade with salary retained with
No, but creative
future
would be
consideration
using
for.
would be making sense of it all. Like, creative is not retaining salary. Creative is being like outside the box. Okay, we'll take Dubois, but you got to take Kemper a big contract. I think that's creative. I think it's a
That's
perfect
not
use.
creative. That's the least creative trade in the world. That's, we'll give you this guy and you give us that guy. That's a 1-for-1. That's the simplest, least creative trade on the planet. It's a
Not in
good
a
trade.
salary cap world. It is not.
A creative
Not a
trade is a
chance.
3-team trade where there's so many moving parts, and this happens if they get to the
I
Western
think it's
Conference Final,
creative.
and that becomes a first pick. If this happens and that happens, that's a big old creative trade to make it all work. And you got all these moving parts, and finally you put it together, and it all works together. That's creative. 1-for-1 isn't creative. So change your notes, buddy.
I think in a salary cap world, that is a creative trade. It's impossible to make trades these days. So I'm going to call it creative. You're going to call me an idiot, whatever. But Kemper gets dealt. Another goalie off the board. Again, I start to wonder the musical chairs, where that's going to land from the Maple Leafs perspective. So we're going to track that. Did you see the whole Barclay Goodrow thing with San Jose? So he was claimed, and apparently he is very pissed off that he's going to San Jose. So the way around it, I think the Rangers wanted to deal him to San Jose, but they were on his no trade list. And so the way around it was putting him on waivers, knowing San Jose wanted the player. That is so greasy, man.
That is pretty greedy. Those GMs are buddies, if I understand, and
Yes.
that like that seems to almost be like a loop. But who puts what guy goes on waivers that has a no trade? It doesn't really happen too often, does it? And yeah, it's, I don't know if the PA is looking at this going, can we allow a guy with a no trade and a specific team to go to that thing no matter how it's done? It's kind of creative, but it's kind of greasy. Mike Greer has kind of been a disaster in San Jose. Sorry to say, he hasn't done anything but make bad deals, if you ask me. And I think he's buddies with New York and kind of set that deal in motion. But yeah, Goodrow would probably be pissed if that was he's got to go get taxed out the ass, live in San Jose, absolute bottom feeder team. Not that he wasn't taxed out the ass in New York, but yeah, that's kind of tough when you feel like you've got control and you know that you're not going to go to certain places and they just shove you there anyway. That's creative, if you ask me. I'd be a little bit pissed too.
I have no clue what that franchise is doing. I know they're getting the first overall pick. They're getting Macklin Celebrini. I don't know if you saw the scrum the other day with Mike Greer, the GM, where usually GMs don't disclose who they're selecting first overall. We know it's all going to happen, but he just mentioned Celebrini, and I think it was like a bit of a slip. Celebrini's going first overall, but like the Hurdle trade made no sense. Like they said they're not dealing Logan Couture. There's obviously some pieces in play on the back end, but that's going to be a longer type rebuild, I think, when you look at San Jose. I'd rather be Chicago, obviously, with Bedard and other pieces on that roster than San Jose. But again, you really can't judge a rebuild until a couple years in. So we'll document that, and we'll document the whole Barclay Goodrow saga with the San Jose Sharks. Meantime, there were some people asking about the Jake DeBrusk news that we sort of put out there last night. I did. I had heard over last weekend that Toronto was a place that intrigued DeBrusk. It was a place that he would love to play in. It's up to your interpretation as to like why this info got out there when it did. But I heard this last week, and we talked about this on the show a couple days ago, if you do recall, the possibility of DeBrusk being a Maple Leaf. But to me, it just seems more likely they bring in DeBrusk if Tyler Bertuzzi's not coming back. So you wonder if that's a bit of a pressure tactic too, but I think it seems like a natural fit nevertheless.
Yeah, it does. I'm all for that guy. He seems to be a playoff performer. He seems to be a killer. He's got experience behind him. He's really elevated his game in the playoffs, which we're looking for. Bert, I like Bert. I've been vocal that I like Domi a little bit more. If you got to keep one or the other, I'd like to keep Domi, especially that he's cheaper, but he's just got more snarl. I just felt like Domi was kind of battling some demons this year. I felt like mentally, just strictly from almost the look on his face and his body language and the way he went about his business and the frustration he seemed to feel at times. I just felt like he's going through something. You always hope that, if that is the case, they come through and figure it out and get to a good place in their career. It sucks wasting years in your prime doing something you love, playing in that amazing league. But he just seemed to have some kind of demons and battle going on within. And if he decided to exercise free agency and went there, which they hinted at, to switch for DeBrusk is totally fine with me. I think that's a sweet deal that the Maple Leafs could get a guy of that ilk.
I think it's a fair trade-off for sure as well. And I think when you look at Bertuzzi, like he's been consistently inconsistent for the majority of his career. I mean, let's call it what it is. But again, that's what separates like good players from star players. Like DeBrusk, I think, is in that threshold too, where he's got moments where it's like, holy crap, this guy's insanely good. And then he goes off the beaten path and off the radar. And that's why I think Boston, it doesn't seem likely that he's going to retain with Boston. I think every team is looking for that consistency, especially top six winger, especially a guy who's going to be earmarked to play with Austin Matthews. And that's why pretty much since Zach Hyman left, they've been looking for somebody. Bunting was that guy for a couple years, but I think DeBrusk could make a lot of sense, but I still think in a perfect world, and it sounds like the two sides are working at something, that Tyler Bertuzzi would be that guy. I just don't see a scenario where it's Bertuzzi and DeBrusk.
Yeah, I mean, either.
Yeah.
I don't know which one you do. Like, who you try to get done first, who you push harder for. Do you wait for Bertuzzi and decide, and then if it's a no-go, then you go to DeBrusk, or do you work them both behind the scenes and see which one comes to fruition? Does Tree Living have an idea of which one he'd rather have? I don't know. The one thing is, what Bertuzzi is like in this market. You don't know with DeBrusk. But again, like all the reasons I said before, you would think he would be a good fit and someone that could help in the playoffs. So I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind having DeBrusk and let Bertuzzi go, to be honest. I'll just say that right now. If I could have my choice, I would rather sign DeBrusk and have Bertuzzi walk. Not that I got anything against him. I just think that you could get some higher end, solid, veteran, experienced play out of DeBrusk.
Especially if you can save a couple bucks too. Like Bertuzzi, I think will command more on the open market. I'm more curious to see how those contracts look in free agency. But the next couple weeks, folks, buckle up. are going to be a lot of fun, starting with the draft next week. After that, free agency. Let's get to the Ryan Reaves interview, brought to you by Wendy's, the home of fresh, never frozen Canadian beef. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave Single, or even a JBC, Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer. Download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order today. Without further ado, here is Ryan Reaves. Folks, it's been a long time coming, but so happy to say welcome to Leafs Morning Take, Ryan Reaves. What's going on, Revo?
How we doing?
Fantastic. Here to promote a bit Death Row Hockey in the partnership with Snoop Dogg and his record label, Death Row Records. Can you tell us a bit about that first and foremost?
Yeah, it was just a little fun project. Snoop actually DM'd me when I was in when I was in New York. He wanted to make a shirt with, there's a picture of me fighting Foligno. And unfortunately, the league wouldn't release the picture, or Minnesota Sun or whoever it was wouldn't release the picture. Then I got traded to Minnie, and I was like, I don't really want to release a picture with me fighting my boy on there. So we kind of scrapped that. And then his team hit me up a couple months ago with the picture we're using now, saying, hey, let's go back at this. We're going to launch Death Row Hockey. I'd love you to be part of it. So I said, yeah, I mean, I grew up on Snoop, so I wasn't turning that opportunity down.
Yeah, we know he's a big hockey fan too. What's it going to be? Is it an apparel lifestyle thing? Is it a brand? What are you guys looking down the road here?
Well, right now it's just a couple of us launched a t-shirt and a hoodie. You can get it on crooksandcastles.com. Crooks and Castles, I think. Sorry. Crooksandcastles.com. Go to the Death Row Hockey area. And I think there's 3 or 4 of us on there right now. I don't know if he's dropped the other ones yet. And then I don't know where we're going to take it after, but yeah, it's a cool little project so far.
Do you remember the first time you met Snoop Dogg? It must have been like a pinch me moment, eh?
A little bit, I was telling my girl, like, I'm not a big celebrity. Everybody knows about me. I'm not a big celebrity guy. Like, I don't really care if you're, famous or whatever. I don't really know a lot of celebrity names. Like, if you showed me a movie and be like, who's that? I couldn't tell you. But having said that, I grew up on Snoop. Like, that was my, Biggie was my first album, and then Snoop Doggy Style was, that was in my tape deck constantly when I was younger. So yeah, meeting him was kind of cool. That was like the one guy. If I'd ever wanted to meet a celebrity, he would have been him. So check that one off.
Right on. Well, take it back to the beginning of the year here, Revo. You signed with the Maple Leafs. What was your experience like in the first year? Was it what you expected? And what was the ride like?
It was a roller coaster for me. Honestly, you guys probably know. It was, I thought I had a really good training camp. One of my better training camps, to be honest. And then, first 2 games, thought I played well. And then all of a sudden, I just started eating dashes like it was my job. And I couldn't do anything about it. I'd step out on the ice, I eat a dash. Somebody toe pick, I eat a dash. A couple were my fault. And it just kind of snowballed from there. It was just a tough time for me. And, when you're eating dashes like that, it's hard for a coach to trust you, whether it's your fault or not. And, and then I had the injury. I was out for a while trying to get back in the lineup. But then when I came back in the lineup, I felt I played pretty well. Obviously the points weren't there, but, I was back to playing physical, getting my fights, getting in people's faces, getting on the forecheck. I wasn't eating the dashes anymore. So it was, I think, a tale of 2 seasons for me, and hopefully it's more of the second half next year.
Yeah, we felt the same way. And naturally, I think like that's the next question is like, what clicked for you in the second half? For me, I really felt like you found your identity. I mean, pardon the pun, but you really had the dog in you on the fourth line. The forecheck was strong, and just the attention to detail was a bit better. But what clicked for you?
I don't know, honestly. It was maybe that break. I used that break after I got hurt, and once I was healthy, but I was still in the IR. Like, I really used that as a mini training camp, just kind of get back into shape and just work on things, while I had the opportunity. When I wasn't playing, I was doing the extra bag skates. I was going on early. I was staying out late, and just, doing everything I can to make sure that when I did get an opportunity, I was ready. And then, that Janmark broke his hand in practice and ended up getting back in for that Winnipeg game right before the All-Star break, and scored in that game. I think, that was a big confidence boost, and then came back and just didn't really look back, just kind of stuck with it. And maybe just a little meaner too in my game. I thought when I was eating those dashes, I was a little tentative in doing so because I didn't want to, start getting in people's faces and then getting a penalty and, their power play scores or whatever it was. So I was maybe playing a little too tentative, especially for my game. And when I came back, I said, screw it. I'm back in people's faces. I'm back chirping. I'm back, playing real physical, getting my fights when I need to. And I think that just kind of helped my game.
For sure. You got the team's making a little bit of a change here, obviously, with the addition of Craig Berube. Have you talked to Craig? Obviously, some parallels in the style of game you guys have played. What's your thoughts on the upcoming season with him at the helm?
Yeah, I'm excited to play for him. Obviously, he likes the style I play, and obviously he played that style back then. But just not even that, but just hearing from guys that played for him in St. Louis, they love playing for him. They love the energy he brought. He loved the messages he brought to the room, and I think it's just going to be a good breath of fresh air for the boys here. And I'm excited to get to work with him.
Fighting in general is something we obviously talk about a lot on this show. Rosie, if you do, did you guys have any run-ins together, by the way? Got to ask that. Did you?
Me and Berube?
We never
No,
really
you
did.
and Rosie.
Oh, no. No, I don't think so.
No, it just never really came about. Different conferences and whatnot, I guess, for the most part. But yeah, one of those guys just never came across, and way she goes sometimes, I guess. Eh?
Yeah, there's a couple there's weird ones like me and Luch never fought. We still have never fought. And, like, to me, that's like one of the weirdest ones because we've had games where somebody's got buried and it's like, okay, well, maybe it's gonna happen. Just for some reason never happened. So I don't know. There's just those weird ones where sometimes you don't have a run-in with a guy and it just doesn't happen.
The one I wanted to ask you about, Revo, was the Rempe tilt, man, because I felt like we were building that up on this podcast for like a week, and then I'm like, me and Rosie were talking about it. I think we were like trying to figure out if we're going to bet on it happening. There was odds out there for a fight, but it ends up happening, and the timing is what got me. It happened late in that game, didn't it?
Yeah, beginning of the third. Closer to the end of the third, middle of the third. Yeah. It was kind of cool to see because, with all the talk of, fighting's leaving hockey and all this. And then all of a sudden for a week, there was no talk about the game. It was, is Reaves going to fight Rempe? That's all it was. And it was kind of cool to see that build up to it. Now, with all that build up, we go in the first period. It's like, all right, maybe we just get this over with. So I asked him and he said, no, fair enough. And so we play the rest of the period, play the second period. I think it was I don't know if it was at the end of the second or beginning of the third where he buried Lyubushkin and hurt him. And then I didn't have a shift against him for a while. And then we had a shift later in that third. I was like, hey, you buried Bush. Like, now you got to answer the bell. And he kind of looked at it. I'm assuming his coach was telling him not to do it because he had a bunch in a row there. Yeah. And he kind of looked at the bench and got the okay. And that was that.
Well, that was kind of interesting, watching him navigate that whole storm that was happening around him. He came in on Broadway, made a lot of noise, had a lot of support behind him. What was your take on it, being a guy that's done that job, been in the league for as long as you have? Young kid comes in, gets in a few scraps. I mean, people were going bananas about him having like 5 scraps in like 2-3 weeks or something like that. And I'm like, fuck, guys do that in a weekend back in the day, as you know. Were you kind of looking around at this guy going, buddy, pay your dues before you become this guy? Or were you pumped that it was good for the game, good for your role, and showcased what that can be in potential?
Well, I mean, maybe a little bit of both. I thought it was great for the game. It's good for me. It's good for my job for sure. When you got new guys coming in and teams are going to be looking for some protection. So yeah, it's good for guys like me and our jobs. On the other hand, if he's just kind of stepping in and trying to ask everybody to go and, all the heavyweights, yeah, you got to pay your dues. But, he wasn't going about it in a bad way. He was, there's maybe a couple of hits that he that got away from him that, maybe you don't want to start with that reputation. But, we had a little chat in the box, and he seems like a nice kid. He doesn't seem like some idiot just running around trying to goon everybody up. Like, the little chat we had, he seemed like a nice, humble kid. So good for him, man. Like, it's hard breaking in the league doing that job, and good for him for doing it.
Well, there's a bunch of tough fuckers in this league. Like, even Arbor Jacka is another guy in your division in Montreal. I was pissed off on your behalf in the first game. I think you scrapped him, but he sort of like fell in the net. And did you go home after that? I don't think you did after that. Did you?
No, we had one game against each other later. where nothing happened. And then I think he was hurt for the last game we played. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't overly happy with that fight either. Like, you kind of jumped me and then just kind of pushed me into the net and we fell over. And, Montreal fans are going crazy. But hey, I got 2 more years on the contract, so we got lots of time.
For sure. Speaking of coming into Toronto and being on this contract, you get a chance to play with Austin Matthews, 69 rips this year. What was it like behind the scenes that the normal person can't really see from that guy and how he goes about his business?
Oh man, just like the stuff he does. I feel like I say this about every superstar I've ever played. I said this about Crosby when, he started, putting it off the back of goalies from behind the net. And he's like, oh, that was lucky. And then you start seeing him do it in practice. He's like, well, maybe that wasn't so much luck. Like, this guy actually does that. But like Matty's the same way. Like his shot is, I don't know where he was working on his shot when I was younger. Like, I don't know where that coach was for me, because he puts it on a pin. He can put it anywhere. There could be no room there, and he's putting it there. How many times did he score from the goal line in the corner? He had that stretch where he did it, I think, 2 or 3 times in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's not by accident. Like, those guys like that, like they hone in on their craft and they can do that. And, you just notice that about Matty. He's got the best shot I've ever seen. And I don't understand, growing up in Scottsdale, who's teaching him that? I grew up in Winnipeg. Like, that's the mecca of hockey. I should be having that shot. But, here I'm grinding, fighting guys, and he's scoring 70. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on.
Oh man, I just, even looking back at that season, I've been covering the Leafs for a while. I couldn't believe it. Like, he was that close to 70 and just he can't be stopped. Lastly, I just wanted to ask you about leadership. I think it's underrated what you bring to the team off the ice, in terms of unity and bringing the team together. How much pride do you take in sort of being that guy in the room as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's a big part of what I want to bring to teams. I don't play on the power play. I don't play on the penalty kill. I don't play 20 minutes a night. So, besides the fighting and the hits and the energy, you have to chip in other ways. And being a guy off the ice is something I've always prided myself in. Being a guy that young guys can come talk to when they have problems, always pride myself in that. I always want to make, I think when I grew up, it was kind of the end of the era-ish of, those vets kind of really hammering on the rookies and making them feel uncomfortable for a couple of years. And, times have changed, and I don't agree with how they've changed, but, you can't treat rookies like that anymore. They're a little too sensitive. So you got to treat them a little differently. And I like to make sure everybody's welcome. And it's just like a lot of the vets on this team do. I'm not the only one that does that, but, because of the role I play on the ice, I have to do other things off the ice.
Well, Revo, we've been trying to link up for a while. Really, really appreciate you taking some time. Congrats on the new partnership, man. And we'll talk soon. Have a great summer, okay?
Appreciate you guys too.
Thanks, Revo.
Take it easy.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Ryan Reaves, been a long time coming, eh, Rosie?
Yeah, it has. Those Maple Leafs like to keep their players close to their vest and keep all control within house. But yeah, they let him come out and promote his thing. And as you can see, he's a thoughtful, well-spoken guy that says what he thinks and doesn't really hold back. It was a nice interview without the token BS answers that might as well not even take place. He said what he thought, and it was good. I like the interview a lot.
I know a lot of people asking in the chat, where is Revo? He's in Vegas, not Arizona. I think it's crystal clear where he lives. He says that every offseason he lives in Vegas, dating back to his time with the Golden Knights. So if you enjoyed that chat, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button as well. That helps us get more Maple Leafs on the podcast. So if you're watching right now, hammer that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well. Will really, really help us out here on the show. It's time for the Great Clips Inbox Question of the Week. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app, see the wait time, check in on your phone, and get your haircut when you want. I had a fascinating question in the chat today. Is Marner on Team Canada for the Four Nations next year?
Maybe, baby. Yeah, he's not in the top 6. So is he going to play in the bottom 6? He can do PK, shut down defensive stuff. Florida, yeah, I mean, for international hockey, big ice, not a lot of physicality. You're playing against Swedes and Swiss and Germans and this and that. It's not NHL playoffs.
Yeah.
I think he very well could be.
Yeah, I think he will be as well. I just think it would be difficult to leave a Mitch Marner off the table. On top of that, I don't know if it's been announced yet. I'm pretty sure it's going to be John Cooper as the head coach of that team. I think we all know that's coming. Coop's a big fan. We had Coop on the show a couple of weeks ago. I've talked to him indirectly about Mitch Marner as well. I think it would make a lot of sense if Marner's on that team. But let's not forget, man, there's a lot of brilliant players out there. And just going through my head right now, imagine a line with Marner and Braden Point on it. Not bad.
Be solid. Be solid. I think that
Yeah.
whole team. I mean, everyone in that bloody tournament is a really good
Great.
player in their own right, and it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how Canada stacks up, whether Mitch is there or not. Like I said, I have a feeling he probably will be in a bottom six role, which he's not used to. But at that level, I think he could find a way to be effective.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about those type of tournaments. Like every line's like an all-star line, specifically pertaining to Canada and United States. And it's like the team who can get the most out of their players, who could, evolve and change their games a bit to the specific role needed by their team, ends up winning the tournament. So looking forward to the Four Nations. Sir Blabla's right said Nick will be cheering for Spain versus Italy this afternoon. I'll be cheering for Italy in the Euro Cup. I don't cheer for Spain. So looking forward to Italy and looking forward to the Four Nations. And yes, I think we both agree that Mitch Marner will be on Team Canada coming up next year, and also the Olympics coming up. That team is going to be unbelievable. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Rolling into the last call. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm heading down to Edmonton once again to do some stuff for the NHL. So Carter Hutton's going to be in the mix. So I'm going to give my plays for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. First thing I like, Rosie, I like the under. I think I'm going to go with the data and the history of later on in series, Game 6 and 7 specifically. The under tends to hit where it's like a 3-1. It's going to be tight checking. I think the only way the Panthers can win now, they got to find a way just to take the crowd out of the game and to be solid defensively. And teams don't want to make a mistake when the going gets tough and it's the most important time of the year. So I like the under. And another thing I like is the Sam Reinhart shot prop. He has been very, very quiet in this series. A guy had an unbelievable contract year. I think he's going to try to shoot the puck a bit more and try to solidify things here for Florida. And if you're asking me to pick a side, I think the Panthers do it. I think they do it.
You do, eh?
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a tough barn to win in. I like the under there too. I also think they're due for an overtime game in this series, and I would pick the tie, which will be in the plus 300s. And I'd also pick a Bobrovsky over saves. I think he's going to play good. So whatever your number, you can get all kinds of different things on 365. But I think he's going to make a good chunk of saves. Maybe, I don't know if there's like save percentage, whatever. But I just think Bobber's not going to have any blunders in Game 6.
It's hard to dispute that. I think it's just been such a fascinating series where I referenced it yesterday. Like Florida can't play any defense. They have no answer for Connor McDavid or anybody for that matter in Edmonton. And I think they have to go back to what's been working for this team and really bog things down and not really do much offensively. Just sit and wait and be patient and wait for a mistake. But I think ultimately why I'm picking Florida to win, I just think everything, went out the window for Edmonton when they went down 0-3 in the series, where it's like you can't have a bad game. You're bound to have a bad game at some point in time, or a game that's not as good as the other games. And I think conversely, Florida is one of the best teams in the league for a reason. This is sort of like a put up or shut up type moment. You want to be the best now. It's time to go out there and prove that you are the best. And yeah, that building's going to be buzzing. I'm going to have a full report coming up on Monday of my findings over there in Edmonton.
Yeah, I know it's exciting no matter what. We'll see. Is Florida going to come out and prove they are the best team in the league like everybody thought, or is Edmonton the team of destiny? It would be exciting to get to Game 7 regardless.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I will tell you, I got some strays on Twitter because somebody accused me of cheering for the Oilers. I'm like, no, I'm cheering for more hockey. Like, I'd rather see a game 6 and 7. I could care less who wins, but a Leafs fan accused me of cheering for the Oilers.
Oh,
I
how
know.
dare you? How dare you?
know.
How dare you cross that man in such a way?
I know. How could I do that? But nevertheless, we're looking forward to game 6. So it's going to be the players only edition of Leafs Morning Take once again on Friday. Carter Hutton's going to be in the mix with Rosie. You guys will discuss anything coming up. I'm sure you'll give your thoughts leading up to game 6 of the Cup Final. So excellent job today, Rosie. I guess we'll talk again on Monday, right?
See you Monday. See if Lord Stanley is given away or not. And yeah, I'm excited to get some talent in that number 1 seat for once. It's going to be a nice change.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I've been taking strays all podcast long, and rightfully so. But from a Maple Leafs perspective, I'm just waiting for the first shoe to drop. We got Craig Berube in the mix now. What's going to happen? The wheeling and dealing. They're preaching change after the season. Let's hear it. Let's do something about it. So many thanks to the Maple Leafs and specifically Ryan Reaves for dropping by the show. Everybody in the chat, you guys are great today. Despite all the strays thrown my way, I appreciate that. We love you here on the show at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Many thanks to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much.